the recording lady just spoke. So Jesse is in England, so it's the afternoon, and I think everybody else is in the States. But thank you so much, Jesse, for coming on and joining us and talking about your filmmaking journey.
Pleasure.
My name is Joanne Butcher, and I have a company called Filmmaker Success. I help filmmakers, the majority of my clients making their first feature. And I have clients who are making shorts, and I have clients who are making TV series and all kinds of things, but the majority of my clients are making their first features. And what we like to talk about is making feature films and how filmmakers actually get their careers going. My first question that I like to ask is, when did you first know that you were a filmmaker?
Ah, when did I know I was a filmmaker? Um, probably, I mean, probably in university. I kind of had a sort of roundabout way into film, uh, starting out as an athlete and kind of a jock, growing up playing sports, and but always loving movies. And I always sort of had this thing where I would play baseball during the season, but then on my downtime, I'd kind of like write stories, and I never kind of saw the two having anything in common. They were very separate to me. But when I started going to university and learning about different, practitioners, I actually studied theater, but then learning about all the different practitioners and different forms of storytelling, that kind of sparked a little thing in me, like a love of film. And then I used to make these short films with my brother, who studied animation, and he would do these animations, and then I would kind of write the scripts for them. And then that became just a thing where it wasn't really part of my curriculum, but I just found myself drawn more to film than like theater or anything else. And I just loved the whole form. And the whole blend of writing and performance and the camera and the lighting and all the different things that go into it. And just I couldn't get enough of it, and I've kind of been all in ever since.
That's so amazing because I was it you who I shot the footage of your bar mitzvah, or was it your
That was
brother?
my brother. Yeah, yeah,
Your brother. Okay.
yeah.
So I have claimed for a long time that I was the one who introduced you guys to film, and so I don't care. I don't
Well,
care.
your short is actually the first film I ever saw where because I had seen people, I'd seen films in the cinema, but I remember when I don't think I went to the set, but my mom was talking about it, and your short was the first time I'd ever seen someone like actually make a film. So
Uh-huh.
that was, I remember that my brother played he was like a son, right? And he had this, it was like a single parent thing. So that was the first time I'd ever started sort of known
I
somebody to make.
forgot that was your brother. I forgot
Yeah,
that was your
yeah,
brother in
yeah,
the
yeah.
film.
Well,
Yes,
that's the
he
first
played.
time I like in my orbit, I had known of anyone that ever made films. The only
Uh-huh.
other thing was meeting the guy from Miami Vice once. Forget his name, Philip
Philip
Thomas Michael.
Philip Michael Thomas.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Getting an autograph from him. That's the only film connection I had beyond that. So yeah,
But
that's Miami.
I do think that it's a really significant thing to see somebody make a film,
Yeah,
you
it
know,
absolutely,
because otherwise it's this thing over there that people over there do,
absolutely.
so to actually see somebody make a film. But anyway, I've always claimed that, and now I have to say I'm wrong, whatever,
No, no, I obviously forgot it. It was in the ether in my back of my mind, but yeah, no, it's definitely was because of you.
Oh, okay, good, 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 good. That's right. So, yeah, I have known you since you were 10
Yeah,
or
about 10. Yeah.
12, something like that.
Hmm.
So I can't tell you how exciting it is for me that you've
Oh,
ended up going into film, and
thank you.
I truly thought you were. I really did. And then when you
Ah,
decided to
okay.
go to baseball, I was like, oh, okay, well, I was wrong.
Really? Okay. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
always been a little a battle in me. I mean, obviously now I've given in, but early on, loving the arts, but not really feeling it's for me, or I don't know what it was. I just sort of was resistant. And but as you know, my mom's a writer and writes books and everything, and it's always been in the back of my mind, literature and storytelling. And obviously at some point it took over, and that just became the thing I pretty much spend every waking minute of my life thinking about, to be honest, you know.
Yep, me too. That's the
Yeah,
way I like it.
yeah,
So, so you said you were in college when you started working on films with your brother, and those were short.
yeah. They
What?
were, yeah, the first few things we did were these animations. He was studying animation at Camberwell College of Art and Design, which is a
Mm.
really good school here. And then I was studying theater and creative writing, more wanting to become a playwright. Um, but he would work on these animations, and he would need a script. So I would write the scripts for the animations. And I was still very much wanting to kind of pursue theater. And after university, I trained at the Royal Court Theater and Soho Theater. And
Really?
yeah, I
Well,
was
Americans
really,
don't know the Royal Court, but to me, that's
yeah,
incredibly prestigious.
it was tough to get in. Yeah. And it's a very respect, you know, if you're wanting to do, to be a playwright, that's kind of one of your rites
Yeah.
of passage, to go through. Yeah, it was a great experience. My teacher at the Royal Court is the writer of the show Succession. So it just shows the caliber. Lucy Preble. So it's uh
Lucy, did you say?
Lucy Preble. She's
Oh
like one
yeah,
of the
I thought it
writers.
was a man who. Oh yeah, I thought it was
She's
a.
one of the writers on
I see. I
Succession,
see.
and she wrote a thing called Enron. It was just really good. You know, teachers that were there, and the other writers were really strong. So it was very competitive. Um, but it was great. And even though I don't do theater anymore, it did teach me a lot about kind of structure and storytelling and dialogue.
Mm.
And yeah, just making these animations with my brother, and then from there,
I
working
just want to
on.
stop 1 second to talk
Yeah.
about Succession
Hmm.
because
Love that
Succession.
show.
Oh my God, it's so amazing. And I only watched it because one of my friends is married to one of the actors in the show, and I thought,
Hmm.
oh, I gotta watch, I'll watch up the pilot or something,
Yeah.
just to be able to say I've watched it. But it got to a point where I considered that maybe it was the best show ever written on
Mm,
television. And then I went
yeah.
back and watched season one of The Wire again, and
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, no, it's not. It's not. But
Yeah.
but
It's
that's how good it is.
it is. It's yeah. I'm with you on that. I thought it was like I can't wait for the next season, to be honest. I'm like
I
it's
know.
such a
I
cliffhanger.
know.
So yeah.
And I don't meet many people who've watched it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's
I couldn't recommend it more highly. It's
oh for sure. Yeah.
it's
It's true
so
actually. It's not as
so
popular
well
as it
written.
should be. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
well written. It's won
Mm,
all the awards you could possibly imagine. But
yeah.
I also think that if you want to understand how the U.S. is being run
Hmm.
by the Murdochs, then
Yeah.
Succession will clarify
Yeah.
all of
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
that. Um,
Yeah.
so, when did you end up making the your first live action film?
That was we moved from animation to, I think we made one live action film while we were still doing our BA. And it was about, I don't even know where I don't even know if it exists anywhere, but it's about marijuana induced psychosis. That was
Oh my
the
gosh.
topic. It was quite an intense short film. And so we made that, and then we both decided that we were going to do our master's degree. And I was sort of on the fence whether, you know, I was a degree at Goldsmiths College, theater, culture and theater, something like that. And so it was either that or like kind of an MA in film. And we both decided to pursue an MA in film at London Metropolitan University. And it was great in a way because it just forced us to make one film after another. We made a documentary, we made short films, we made a music video, so it was a commercial. So it was just pumping out. You know, the output was very prolific. And so and actually what's interesting is that that first short film documentary I made, it's called Cage Fighter, was actually the premise for the feature film I just made 12 years
Oh,
later.
nice.
So it's interesting that those stories you're telling at the very beginning of your career can still kind of be a seed for something bigger down the line, you know?
Huh. Live with you and kind of grow with you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
I mean, I did spend about 5 years writing and rewriting the script. So it was like, it wasn't for lack of trying. It was just, I think it was more getting the story right. But
yeah,
yeah, I always feel like it's nice to have a kind of a bank of ideas sitting around that might be right for a different time, you know?
yeah,
So
yeah.
that, yeah, that was when I kind of started going into live action, and then from there, we just sort of started making lots of documentaries, which I found to be a really great training ground for filmmaking, whether it's fiction or not, because it teaches you to work with the money and to work really quickly.
And was that where you worked on the project with your mom?
Yeah,
For the
surviving history.
time, was it after school that you did that?
Yeah, that was after university, and
Can you talk about that a little bit?
yeah, so
About
that's called surviving history. And my mother, Siobhan Wolfson, was working on a thesis about Lithuanian Holocaust survivors. So, and she's actually written the book since. Uh, but at the time, that was sort of part of the research to make a documentary. And so we went to Vilnius and met with several Holocaust survivors, because in Vilnius, in Lithuania, it experienced, during the Holocaust, I think 94 or 95% of the Jewish community were killed. So it was a really horrific time for them. And so we were making a film about kind of some of the remaining survivors and hearing their stories. And it was to be honest, to this day, it's one of the things I'm most proud of. And it was one of the toughest films I had to make emotionally, just because of the harrowing stories that we were kind of hearing. And yeah, it was it's something that I think it's available on their through Journeyman Pictures, a distribution company in the UK, who picked up a couple of our films, and they distribute it. Believe it, I don't know if it's in the US, but in the UK it is. But yeah, it's something I'm really, and also making with family. My mom was in it. My brother was the other director. My mother's partner, Fran, was the other producer. So it was kind of very much a family oriented thing, you know?
yeah, and you were very young at the time to be looking at those stories.
Mm. I was 25. Yeah. 20,
Yeah, and
25 or 26. Yeah.
yeah, and the profound. What's the big feature film with big stars in it that tells the story of the Lithuanian Holocaust?
So I know Spielberg did something, Showa. Is it The Pianist?
No, no, I'm not talking. Gosh, I got to find out what this film is because it's really quite good, but it's this big epic drama
Hmm.
set in Lithuania in the Holocaust, and it shows how the entire Jewish population decided to make the decision to go and live in the forest, and basically
Ah,
resist.
I would love to know the name of that. Yeah, I don't know.
I will figure it out before you go,
Okay,
so I
cool.
can tell you because I've watched it a few times.
Yeah.
But mostly because of your film and Siobhan's work,
Hmm.
just it wasn't something that I knew about, and because the story of the Holocaust in Lithuania is so completely different than
Yeah.
in the other countries. Can you just tell everybody a little bit about that?
In terms of
The
in
story,
Lithuania.
yeah, yeah. What
Yeah, I
was
mean, basically, they were, it was sort of most of the community were killed, and there was a lot of neighbors, betraying neighbors and things like that, and they would dump their bodies in these pits. I believe it's called Panare, and it was just mass killings, and some that were managed to leave managed to go to either South Africa or Israel, you know but yeah, it was just probably the most concentrated area in which Jews were killed during the Holocaust. I mean, nearly wiping the entire Jewish community out. So it's just something that I wish what, I feel really bad. I don't remember the name of my mom's book, because it's a nice companion piece. So if she's
Oh, yes,
listening, maybe
yes,
she can
yes.
don't she can put it in the chat.
Lexi's
Uh,
so good at doing this. Well, let's see if we can challenge her. So the book is by Siobhan Defiance. Thank you, Keith. How did you do that? Keith, great job. Defiance is the name of the movie. Yes. Good job, Keith. But it's got, big stars in it, and
I'll definitely check that out.
yeah, it's very well done, and it's the only other thing I know other than your film that
Mm,
looks at the Lithuanian Holocaust.
yeah.
So then, and was that the film that got into Cannes?
No, we went to Cannes with it.
Oh,
We took
okay.
it to the Cannes Short Film Corner, but no, it did play quite a few festivals, and then it got distributed by Dirty Man Pictures, which is a UK distribution company that works a lot with like films dealing with like human rights issues and things like that. So they've been great and to work with as well, because they've distributed a few of our films.
Great. So I think what I'd like to do is play the trailer of your first feature.
Hmm.
I know we're on Zoom and it's not the best quality and all of that, but so I'm going to share my screen, and the name of Jesse's movie is Calloused Hands, and I'm just going to show the trailer.
All right, time for the meat and potatoes. Give me a price tag.
$12 million.
Woo! Your last name ain't Trump, is it? You wanna watch like that?
Yeah.
Damn right you do. Everybody wanna watch like that. How we get it?
I go practice.
Let's go get it. This is the moment of truth right here, man. This is what it's all about. This is the moment. Show 'em what you made of.
Come on, Josh!
Come on, Josh, you can do it! You gotta be able to deliver when the game is on the line and everyone is watching.
Bert, do you have any idea when you'll be able to start contributing again?
I got a strong feeling that next week will be my week.
Better than that, better than this. I need something that's better than the weed and the lick. Can't be
Looking for the family special tonight?
I cannot have drugs in my house!
When the last time you been to Ed?
It's none of your business!
in this chain.
What do you want?
$10,000.
I have a proposition for you. I want you to have a bar mitzvah because you're my one and only grandson. You're like flesh and blood, and that's Jewish blood running through your veins.
6 months to learn to read Hebrew. Oh boy.
I want you to succeed. I want you to be the best damn baseball player that ever lived. He can hit a baseball 400 feet.
But there's more
He's
to
only
life.
12.
There's more to life than baseball.
Not for him, there ain't. It's a nice house. I want one.
Bet I'm the only rabbi in the U.S. of A who can pitch baseball over 8 miles an hour, huh?
I didn't know Jewish guys play ball.
Y'all are really taking this Hebrew stuff seriously, ain't you?
Was that a threat?
That's a warning.
Can you stop pushing Josh so hard?
Let's go! Come on, come on. Come on, baby. Come on! Josh, concentrate. See the ball in. Come here. Give me 6 laps.
Hey, don't
Give me
talk
6
to him
laps.
like that.
You know me? Do I know you? Hey, shut up, kid. What, are you being cool now? I will knock you out. You think I'm hard on you, man? I love you, man. I wish I would have had it me when I was you. Stay away from my boy. It's just you and me out here. I ain't nobody. Don't worry about them. It's just blisters. You'll callous tomorrow.
This could be heaven without all the shine. A great driven romance before its own time.
Fabulous, fabulous. So it's interesting at the end of the trailer, it says based on a true story.
Yeah, it's my story.
Yeah, yeah.
And my mother's and my brother's. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, can you tell us a little bit about what inspired that? What the true story is there?
Yeah. So basically, it tells the story of a boy named Josh who's 12 and he's mixed race, and he's got this stepfather who's played by Andre Royo, who from The Wire, who his character is called Bird, and wants to turn him into like this baseball star, like the next Alex Rodriguez. And yeah, and then he's got his mother, who Debbie, who is kind of struggling to make ends meet and suffering from some issues around addiction and things like that. And so but she's kind of hits a point where she needs some support, and so she reaches out to her father, Solomon, and asks for some support, and then he says he'll give some financial support because they're behind on bills and things like that. And so he'll help her out if the grandson will have a bar mitzvah. And so the boy starts preparing for the bar mitzvah and working with this rabbi, and in doing so, it starts to kind of pull him in a different direction in life, you know, and rather than kind of pursue that baseball dream, which is really Bird's dream that's been kind of transplanted into him, he starts to realize that there's maybe more to life than, you know, than just hitting baseballs. So yeah, it's a coming of age story, and yeah, it's my first feature.
And it really is your own story.
Yeah, well, the boy's very much based on me and my brother. I'd say probably 50-50 in terms of the plot, in terms of the things that happen
Mm-hmm.
to the kid in the movie. But yeah, a lot of it's pretty accurate. And you know, you move things around. Like, you know, the rabbi, in reality, I did work with a rabbi. He was nowhere near as cool as the rabbi in the film. Is that the character is actually based on my chiropractor. I had this really cool chiropractor when I was playing baseball, and he had a story. He was Jewish, and he had given up baseball to pursue to kind of, for his faith. He wanted to really get very religious, but then he kind of fell into chiropractic work. But we used to have these really philosophical talks about life, and so I kind of amalgamated all these different things into this one
Right.
character, and move things around just to kind of give it a little bit more of a relationship where one kid is torn between two different paths. So yeah, it was something.
So how long did it take you to make that feature from beginning to, I don't know, getting distribution, let's call it?
I wrote the story when I was 19. I actually, because I trying to follow in my mom's footsteps. She's a writer of books. I tried to write it as a book first, and I spent years working on it, and couldn't get it moving really. I actually got an agent for a minute, but then she tried getting it published, and it just didn't go anywhere. And I kind of put it aside and gave up on it. But years later, kind of went back to it, and sort of thought maybe there's something in there that might work. And the book took place over like the age of sort of 8 to 18. But then I thought there's one little summer that felt kind of cinematic. And so I took the summer when I was 13, and kind of wrote that into a screenplay. So it was much more condensed in terms of the amount of time it covered, and pulled out a lot of the characters that didn't feel core to the story, and that became the screenplay. And I remember finishing. I'd just gotten into the Berlinale Talent Campus, which is like a nice training program in Berlin. And I finished the screenplay there. And then the first thing I did, I had met somebody that knew Andre Royo, and I asked her. It was a friend of mine. She actually is an actor, and she was in the movie. And I asked her, could she put the script in Andre's hands? So she tweeted him and said, "Hey, Andre, I've got this script." And he said yes to reading the script. And then he liked it. And he said, "I want to meet the director." And I was in London. He's in LA. So I got a plane ticket, flew out to LA, met with him at his own restaurant, because he has a restaurant. I won't say where,
I
but
didn't know that.
yeah, it's very nice. Bought him dinner at his own restaurant, and I kind of made my pitch to him, and the pitch was, this to me is death of a salesman, but like kind of more a Miami version of that. The little man that's trying to fight back against the big American dream, and he gets swallowed up by it. And he really liked that. We kind of added our own flavor to that kind of narrative. And I think also that he's never played a leading part in a film. He's an amazing character actor, but he never carried a movie over like a whole 3-act structure. Yes. And he did a fantastic job. If you're a fan of The Wire, like he's really good in this. He's got such a layered and nuanced performance, and just an incredible actor.
Yeah, I mean, seeing Calloused Hands, I think one of the, and knowing you, but one of the biggest things that jumps out at me is you got Andre Royo, to me, it's like, oh my God, Bubble,
yeah.
The Wire, and, and I feel as though, The Wire is this sort of iconic TV show, but even though there were so many amazing actors in there, Bubbles, I think, is very special.
Yeah.
I don't think
I agree.
I suspect he was never written as such a big role from the beginning. Yeah. And his role just grew and grew and grew because he brought so much empathy and pathos to that
absolutely
character of this completely bottom end drug addict
Mm,
that, you see in the street pushing the,
yeah.
supermarket thing,
Yeah.
and nobody thinks anything about who they are or
Mm,
what motivates them and how they run their lives. And he brought so much to that. And what an amazing achievement that you brought him. But I think you said the thing that I would have imagined, which is
mm,
never played a leading role before.
yeah. Yeah.
And to get to play that very complex
Absolutely.
father who is also an anti-father role,
Yeah. Yeah.
I could see why. And just, for everybody on here, if you're looking to attach a name to your film and you can make,
Mm,
a character actor like that, give them a leading role,
absolutely.
they'll be excited.
Yeah. Then it.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I don't remember what I was gonna say. It wasn't anything too important.
The other thing, and you don't, have to say numbers if you don't want, but I'm assuming that you didn't have millions of dollars to
No.
make them,
Yeah.
right? So when you approach somebody like him, and he's living in LA and he's a star
Yeah.
and he has his restaurant, how
Yeah.
do you persuade him? I totally get that he would have been interested in that role, no question.
Well, it definitely wasn't the money, because I think our whole budget was probably what he makes per episode of The Wire, So it wasn't it wasn't the money for sure. Um, I think with him it was that one, and this is something I've learned over time, is that if you, especially with bigger actors, if you can take as little of their time as possible, that strengthens your chance of casting them. So I shot that in 18 days. It was like a 3-week shoot, and still it's some time, but he slotted it in between two bigger things. And,
Did you have him for 18 days or did you have him for fewer days than that?
he was there, I think he was there for the full 18.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. But he had just done a film called Spectacular Now, which kind of, we had to move our film because of that. And there was another thing. So we kind of slotted in between two things. But I have to say, to his credit, he's a producer on the film too. And he was really dedicated as a producer. He's a big part of how we got into the Urban World Film Festival in New York, through his connections. And, I'm still friends with him to this day. I'm trying to find another thing to work on. I've got something in the pipeline that I hope to be able to work with him on. But he's a really talented guy, and just a true artist. Like when you work with him as an actor, he's like a ball of electricity. You never know what he's going to do, which I think is really exciting.
Wow. Yeah. Yes.
And he has a bit of method. He's got a bit of Stanislavski. Like he's drawing from so many different disciplines, and he kind of just it's like this amazing carpenter with this vast tool belt, and he can kind of dip into any tool he wants at any given moment. And I think I needed that because the main actor in it is Luca, who's a 13-year-old boy. So it's like he didn't have as much experience, and to kind of play alongside a young kid and sort of in a way mentor him during the shoot was you kind of needed that level of experience.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing that you did that. And so was the Urban World Film Festival where the film premiered?
No, it was Miami International Film Festival.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
I really like those guys. I don't know if you know Jay LaPlante.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's
for a long time. Yes.
yeah, he's a really good guy, and he really wanted it. And I always feel like, you go where the love is, and they really were excited. Obviously, me being a Miami guy, and it's a Miami story. So, yeah, we world premiered it there, and then it kind of did its thing. It ended up playing in 20 plus film festivals, and then got picked up distribution in the States and over here. And yeah, I'm still, it's almost 10 years old now, to be honest, the film, but I'm still very proud of it,
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's a fantastic film. It's just fantastic.
Thank you.
And, yeah, one of the things I think that a lot of filmmakers don't realize is that the power of kind of the geographic niche, so the Miami thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the Miami film, it's a Miami story. It has that whole mixed race piece. It has the whole Jewish piece.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that was our strategy, to be honest. I felt like you know, Miami was going to give it a good push. It gave us a good slot, and that kind of went into my decision behind it. But then we also looked at, you know, Black film festivals, like the Urban World. Also in the UK, there's a really good one called the British Urban Film Festival, which
Yeah.
has since made me a patron of the festival, which was a tremendous honor. And they've been really supportive of my career on this side of the pond. And you know, at a couple of Jewish film festivals. So we definitely kind of went that more niche route with it. And I think that's always a good thing to bear in mind, whatever your film is, what might be the festival strategy for it or the distribution strategy for it, and kind of having that in mind, even while you're kind of packaging it and everything, you know?
And where did you get distribution with it once the festival?
Well, so Kino Lorber, which is a New York-based distributor, they picked it up, and it's so weird because you know the distribution landscape has changed so much over the last few years. At that time, it was a small theatrical release, like we're talking a couple screens, and then a DVD release, which now today is like no one really does that. But so it was a DVD release that they did, and then after following that, it was on Amazon Prime. Um, and then and just recently it's been put on Apple TV, so it's still kind of doing its thing. And when deals expire, I always try to, like, and I own the rights to it, and because I'm also the producer of it, I always make sure that it finds its home somewhere. So yeah, no, now recently, through my relationship with British Urban Film Festival, they have a kind of an output deal with Apple TV, so we've worked something out. So that's been nice to kind of keep it going.
Apple TV again then, because I've been more impressed with that platform than I think any of the other ones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, with their selections and their curation of content. It's not huge, but it's
Yeah.
very nice.
Yeah, very tasteful, it looks like.
Yes, very tasteful.
Yeah.
That's a good word for it. So then between Callous Hands and The Cage Fighter, what were you doing in your career?
I mean, you know, there's the stigma that you always hear. I don't know if it's in the States, but at least in Europe, it's like that your second film is almost harder to make than your
Oh,
first.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've said I call my business Filmmaker Success, but the name that I'm gonna change it to one day is second film.
Okay. Yeah. Because it's a huge stigma. Yeah. So the sophomore feature is even harder than the first feature because, you know, there's so many schemes around for like first time directors. At least I know in the US it's less so, but in UK, in UK there's a lot of first time schemes, like, you know, where you can get development or whatever. There's not really anything for second. So and like there's those rare cases, say you're Tarantino or whatever, you make a first feature that just blasts through the stratosphere, you're made. But you know, a lot of people, it's not like that, and you kind of have to build slow. And so I found it really tough to get the second one made. And I wanted to kind of, I also had this thing of like, oh, I got to get it made within 2 years, because that's sort of the number that in my head was like, okay, if I don't get it made in 2 years, it gets harder and harder, because then people start looking at you, well, why do you have such a gap between first and second feature? And they do, and all of a sudden they start looking at you like you're a new feature filmmaker again. And it does happen. So 2 years turned into 3 to 4 to finally 5. And I was working on the script the whole time, and Cage Fighter got financed in a much more kind of traditional way. Basically that was pre-sold. And I went to AFM. I'm one of the producers of that as well, and went to AFM and found a sales agent that, you know, kind of believed in the project, gave us an MG, or a minimum guarantee for the UK, and that got the ball rolling. And then I found some other financiers that were willing to put some equity, and just turned out I met one of the financiers was just a wrestling mad guy, loved the concept, and fully financed the whole movie. So
what is the concept of the movie, so everybody knows?
So Cage Fighters, it's a sports drama, kind of very much in the Rocky-esque vein. And it tells the story of a guy called Reese, who's a mixed martial arts fighter and kind of 5-time champion. And for his 6th title defense, his promoter, Max Black, and that's played by Gina Gershon, tells him, I've got a kind of a novelty fight that might be exciting, and that's to fight a professional wrestler. So someone like the Rock or the equivalent, who wants to make a crossover fight. And at first he's really resistant, but then he realized the guy has pretty big social media following. So he does the fight, prepares and does the fight, does all the promotion and all the rest of it. And the fight shockingly doesn't go as he expected, and he actually loses the fight. And then it kind of follows his build up to deal with all of his psychological demons as it kind of builds to the big finale at the end. So yeah, it was and the producer's just a huge wrestling fan, so that kind of was the thing that got it made, really, which is just so interesting, where no matter what, money or whatever, it's really down to passion and interest. It's so interesting, I think.
And so in those 5 years, were you working on other projects? I mean, I'm always curious
Yeah.
how filmmakers sustain
Mhm.
themselves in their career while they're going from 5 years between one film.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's scary. I produced one feature film, a film called No Shade, which was written and directed by a woman by the name of Claire Anya Mosigwe. She actually was one of the people that runs British Urban Film Festival, and she was making her first feature. So I helped with that, and that came out a few years ago. And they're actually she's working on her second feature right now, which I'm also producing. And then I also lecture. I lecture on filmmaking at various film schools across the UK, including Met Film School, Central Film School. And so that was what really helped sustain me while things were kind of dry as a storyteller. And then the good thing about lecturing at that film school is when I needed to go and make my movie, Cage Fighter, because I ended up shooting it in Canada. I could take 3 months off and go just make the movie, and then come back and do bits whenever they needed me to, or whenever it kind of made sense.
Right. So yeah, so teaching and things like that. But
Mhm.
I think a lot of times, in fact, even when I invite people to come and be on this interview series, they'll like, oh, but wait, I don't earn 100% of my living from making films, and I'm like, yeah, that's called being a filmmaker.
Pretty much. I there's very few that I know that do. Like I've always sort of like thought of the idea of like having multiple income streams, like, and that seems to be the modern way of looking at things anyway. And it's always like the balance. Like maybe the 2 years while I was prepping Cage Fighter, it was like 70% lecturing and corporate videos or whatever, and 30% film stuff. And then after, it's sort of the balance is different. Maybe it's more 70% filmmaking and 30% teaching. And I always sort of keep a foot in lecturing, just because I enjoy it. It's a great way to meet up and coming filmmakers and crewing up other things. Like I have got a student, because I'm still doing bits now, a student who wanted to be a first AD. And it's rare you meet somebody that actually wants to be a first or second AD. And I had this friend shooting a low budget feature, and she needed a second AD. So right out of film school, he's got his first job. So it was great.
Nice.
So I still like it for that. I had like 5 former students work on Cage Fighter. So it's always a nice way to kind of stay connected.
Nice. And where along in the process did you get yourself an agent? And are you, is it a literary agent, or an agent as a producer or director? How does that work?
I got my first agent right when I shot Callous Tens. So it's quite a long time ago. And then in that 5 years, one of the painful things was I got dropped by my agent because I just wasn't delivering the goods,
It's the money.
Yeah, it was, and that's the harsh reality of film, and then I found another one.
The agent in the first place.
I wrote her an email and sent her, and then told her the synopsis of Callous Tens. I sent her the script. She really liked it. Then it was a courtship, I'm letting her know when I always feel, I found with agents, they really like it when people are going to make their stuff regardless, that they aren't going to get it going no matter what. And so by the time I was shooting, she signed me, kind of thing. And she was a great agent, and sales screen in the UK, and set me up with a lot of great meetings. Then a year later or 2 years later, got dropped, unfortunately, and found another agent, and we parted ways as well. Now I have I'm with a agency called Revolution Talent, which I'm very happy with. They're a literary agent, but because I produce, it's always a bit tricky, because sometimes I'll get on. He will do deals where it might be me involved as a producer. But he's been good. And then in the States, I just, off the back of Cage Fighter, I signed with Gersh. And so he's been really good in terms of opening up doors in LA. And, you know, that's been a really eye-opening experience to see how things work in the States, you know, and just doing general meetings and pitching for open writing assignments and things like that. So, yeah, that's been, it's been great. So now I have representation in the UK and in the US.
And are they, because it sounds as if you're very actively in communication with them.
Yeah, I talk to them probably every day.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Like
so,
I'm talking to my Gersh guy like right after this, actually.
yes, that's what you were
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
So, and have they been successful in finding work for you? And
Yeah, with the UK one, it's he's been really good at for instance, like contracts and things like that. So like with Cage Fighter, a lot of times low budget films. I mean, Cage Fighter was, was $1.5 million. Even on a film like that, sometimes it's tough to get paid properly on that. And what my UK agent what did good for me was I got paid, and that was through just being really good on the contracts. And he's been good at kind of like, linking me with other kind of commissioners or execs in the UK. And then in terms of Gersh, it's still a relatively new relationship. I signed with him like last October, but he's been fantastic in terms of just meeting production companies stateside and just making strong links during COVID I wrote a new screenplay which is called Heist of Benin, and that's kind of been my, like, similar to Callous Hands years ago, like that's my new kind of calling card script. So that's been the thing that sort of that, along with the two films I've made, but they also, a lot of people want to see the writing on the page. That's been the thing that sort of opened up doors in the States, is that new screenplay.
And what's that screenplay about?
That one is it's called Heist of Benin, and it's a heist film about a crew that are hired to go into the British Museum and steal the Benin bronzes and return them back to Nigeria. So it's quite political and topical, but kind of packaged in an Ocean's 11 type vibe,
Right. Nice. So as you're going along the process of raising funding for that, are you looking at Nigerian funding?
Right now, we're sort of looking at whether I'm going to produce that at all. Like that's sort of, we'll see. I would be excited to, but I'm also open to see, like, it's a different model in the States where they sell scripts and things like that. So we're looking at that. But I would if I was to produce it, yeah, Nigeria definitely be part of the plan for sure, because there's parts of there's scenes that there's about 10% of it takes place in Nigeria, so that would definitely be maybe like a UK Nigerian kind of thing. But yeah, so that all the packaging part of it comes into play. I don't know if you guys kind of cover that kind of thing, but what that entails.
Say a little bit about packaging, what packaging looks like.
Yeah, I mean, it basically creating a schedule, creating a budget, creating a finance plan, attaching some talent, doing some artwork. Or I always like doing like concept art and posters.
Okay.
Things that allow like sales agents to sort of see right in one image, like this is what the movie looks like. Yeah, so it's just those pieces that then, if you're able to bring some talent attached, then it gives the project value. So
I like the idea of the poster, because when I used to run the Alliance Cinema on Miami Beach, I got to the point where I would see the poster of the movie and know if it would do well or not. And I thought I had become this like totally superficial person, but now I realize, no, I learned marketing.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's totally that. And I think I learned, it struck me when I went to my first ever film market, which was the European film market in Berlin, and walking through and seeing all the sales agents selling their films and just these posters everywhere. And I just thought, they're looking at an image and getting right away whether they want it or not. And I thought I should be thinking like that even while I'm packaging the film, because when I bring it to final, it was really a telling experience with Cage Fighter. I was sitting with our sales agent, and this is a guy who's giving me 150 grand as part of the finance. And we were months into our conversations, and at one point I said something about the plot, and he said about one character, and he said to me, "Jess, this is where I have to admit I haven't read your script," you know. So it was like, and it's not I didn't take it as an offense. I was like, okay, these are not the guys that read scripts. Maybe they want to just see how all of the pieces fall into place. So it just really was an eye opener. But yeah, so I think posters are really important for that. Some people like doing like proof of concepts, but I'm always really reluctant to do that because you'll never have the budget you have for the movie, so it never looks as good, you know.
No, I totally agree. But I'm always talking to my clients about how filmmakers are, have very complex brains,
Mm.
creative, and they're thinking about story and on all these different levels, and but the industry is not. The industry
Yeah,
is very simple. So,
yeah, yeah,
that's why a log line is so important,
absolutely.
because the industry knows from a log line if they are interested in the film or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You
And
know,
then if you can it's like fishing. If you can tease them in with a poster and a log line, then you get them kind of hooked. And then,
that's right. And then
you add the cast or talent or something VFX interesting, whatever it is, then it's like
yeah,
you're luring them in slowly kind of thing.
exactly,
Yeah. It's very
exactly.
psychological.
Yeah, and people are open to see your poster idea or a log line
Yeah,
because this is the 21st century and everybody's doing 5,000 things at
absolutely.
the same time.
Absolutely.
So they have to be able to get it in one shot and just be able to go,
Yeah.
oh, yep, that's on the money.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. That's interesting because I did it for Cage Fighter, and the guy that designed the poster, he did such a good job. He ended up designing the official Cage Fighter poster as well.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Yeah, so that was he's really good. And I use him now for all of my kind of mock posters. Anytime I do concept art, he's the guy I use. So,
Oh, great. That's a good person to have on your team.
mm.
So I'd love to open it up for questions. If anybody has any questions, I think we have a very quiet. Oh, Diane, I can always rely on Diane to ask a question, but I'm very grateful. Go ahead, Diane.
Yes, you can definitely count on me for questions. Jesse, thank you so much for joining us. Joanne,
Pleasure.
I love the fact that you were, that you shot the bat mitzvah. And just, yeah, that's a wonderful story.
Mm.
Yeah, and I love so many elements of how it is that your career has sort of moved forward, and very particularly the fact that you pay it forward. So
Hmm.
obviously, and
Yeah,
just the fact that you're still really, it feels like, linked to your roots, and the fact that you work with so many
absolutely.
students and so on.
Hmm.
And so one of the things I mean, I have a number of questions, but one of the things I'm curious about in terms of calloused hands
Hmm.
is how much, because that's so autobiographical,
Yeah.
how much of you being able to tell that story in the way that you were, how does that relate, do you think, to your evolution as a filmmaker? If that,
It was a tough film to make, to be honest. Like it was, dealing with some of the darkest kind of times of my childhood. It definitely was a therapeutic experience. Kind of and I think that's the beautiful part of, it's so interesting. Like we're dealing with finance and budgets and all that, but at the end of the day, it's still art, and that was a really important one for me to kind of be able to delve into some of those dark times of my life, and be able to tell the story around that. And yeah, I would have liked it. It was interesting because you can, when you write a book, you have that. I try to get it done as a book. It was sort of it all felt kind of really organic, but there's something about the chaos of even being on set and dealing with an 18-day shoot and all the problems that happen when you're on an independent film shoot that just sort of somehow felt right. And yeah, it was definitely that for me. In a way, was my film school. Making an independent film on a very grueling kind of schedule, and it taught me more about filmmaking than anything, for sure.
Jesse mentioned the pianist earlier, and if you want to learn about a filmmaker making a film to deal with trauma, I would really look at that. There are
Mm,
scenes in The Pianist that Roman Polanski, had to stop on set and things like that for
yeah.
because it was so real. There's a scene when there are all these soldiers on a train platform and the family is being put on the train, and one of the pianist's friends is a police officer, and he comes and pulls him out of the line, and the family gets on the train, and and that happened to Roman Polanski.
Yeah.
And
And that's the beautiful thing with film, isn't it? That we can kind of use them as, vessels for our stories.
Yes.
Yeah.
And apparently that scene was not in the original script. Yeah. So there are definitely situations, I think, that might be helpful, for you to, because Diane's working on something where her own story is going to be
Right.
part of the film. So, but it can also be tough looking at those issues. I just had a client right now who had to go back into therapy because of what came up with working on the film and telling that story, telling her own story.
Yeah.
So I will, on that note, Joanne, I'm making my first feature, documentary feature, and it's Are You Hearing Me? And it's a film celebrating the stories of 7 female artists who have transcended experiences of sexual and physical trauma, exploring how we empower ourselves and our communities. And it's anchored on my own story of coming out of that in 2010 and going back through my history. But it's so part of my process, as Joanne knows, is just, I am still, going through treatment, and it's so incredibly empowering to myself going through this process in terms of what it is that I want to do. And it's just, the evolution.
That sounds really powerful.
Yeah, thank you. That is my intention. So thank you so much for
that sounds great.
Generously sharing with us this morning.
Keith, go ahead with your question.
Yes, I was wondering, so in the film, I noticed it says something about that the kid went through a 6-month crash course for his bar mitzvah. Did you actually do that? 6 months?
It was, I think I might have, to be honest, I might have made myself a little smarter in the movie than because I also had in the film that he learned to read Hebrew, whereas I must confess I did it phonetically. But I don't know if it was 6 months. It was a condensed time. So interesting. I'm even talking about this because my son, he's 12. He's preparing for his bar mitzvah. So it brings back a lot of memories, and I'm like torn of whether he should watch the film or not, but it's a bit adult for him right now. But I don't know if it was 6 months, but it was definitely shorter than because I remember the rabbi was sort of a little stressed about the amount of time we had to prepare.
Yes, I think I remember that actually.
My brother had more. He did it more kind of official.
Yeah, because it was like he did the official class that was like 9 months, and everybody started at the same time.
Yeah, that's the one you filmed. Yeah.
Yes.
I was curious because I grew up. I went through the whole process of being in Hebrew school and then Sunday school and going to learning it from. So I was wondering, 6 months, how would he do that? Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Yeah.
No, I'm not trying. I wish I was that smart. Yeah.
Does anybody else have a question for Jesse? Lexi, go ahead.
Well, I don't know. I have so many questions, but I guess since I first kind of heard that we were going to have you on TFL and looked you up and saw the Cage Fighter, I grew up in a family that loved UFC, and when I saw you had Chuck Liddell in your movie, I was like, how did he get Chuck Liddell?
We just made him. It was very standard. Made him an offer through his agent. I think because I do martial arts, I do Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, so that kind of helped to as a thing where I think he knew that I was sort of passionate about the sport and kind of had studied it a bit, so he felt that I had invested the time to kind of learn about it. So no, he was a very nice guy.
That's awesome. Thank you for being here today, by the way.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a real pleasure.
I think that the whole question of attaching name talent to a film is really something that seems like a mystery, you know, to filmmakers, especially if they're talking about not having, you know, millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So the fact that you've been able to land these really great celebrities in your films is really something to aspire.
It's always a kind of like a catch-22, because the thing is, like, if you go to agents of actors and they want to know where, when you're going to shoot or how much they're going to get paid, and the reality is you actually have no value in your project until the actor's on board, and they know that. So then it's always that push and pull thing. And the other thing is, like, if you get a big actor, then it will elevate the value of your film. So then a $1 million film could be a $5 or $10 million film, because then the financiers, prep their estimates, and it's a much more kind of potentially profitable movie. So we're always sort of spitting those plates as producers, and kind of moving things along while trying to bring value to the project.
Once you landed Andre Royo and Callous Hands, did you go through a process of getting evaluation of the film? And if not, did you do that with The Caged Fighter?
Not with Calloused Hands. We just sort of, it was still too small a film, even with him. With Cage Fighter, we did. And basically, there's like a little strategic way to do it that I find can be really helpful. Because what we did is we first attached Gina Gershon, and that happened right. And I like to use, I think a lot of producers do this as well, where we use the markets as strategic points in the kind of announcement. So for instance, use AFM, we announced Gina Gershon. And then that was a year out from actually shooting. So it's like, you can't really do that with everybody, because a year out is a bit risky. You're going to lose people. But with Gina, it was enough to get the ball rolling, get a sales agent. Then they prepped, they had value on it. And then they prepped, did pre-sales on it. I think we got one more person. And then strategically, we looked at like a month or even a month and a half out from shooting, and you actually would be surprised at what kind of names you can get if you like have specific dates, and you have like we're going to start in October 1st, and we need this person, Chuck Liddell, for 8 days for this amount of money for these dates, and things fall through in their lives, things, and all of a sudden there's an availability, and you're able to land people. So I kind of approach it that way, where maybe you get 1 or 2 pieces to get the cast going, give it value, and then use maybe the next market. Say it's you're starting the whole thing in AFM, you might use Berlin or as the next market, and then Cannes. And every time you're announcing maybe a new sales agent, maybe a new talent, maybe a new production, producing partner, whatever. And so the markets become like your kind of like signposts along the way. And then you're kind of using the industry to your advantage,
Yes. And so once you had Gina Gershon on, did you then, at that point, did the sales agent do an evaluation for the film?
They did. They did sales estimates, and they were happy with that. And off the back of that, they gave us the minimum guarantee, which was, for the UK rights. So they were one of the rare companies in the UK, a lot more in the States, where they'll distribute domestically but sell internationally. So they do that, and so they were going to take the UK and then sell, and then we managed to do about 500,000 pre-sales, which is what gave us a nice chunk to start and then we had a financier come in, and we were off to the races. And within a year of getting Gina Gershon, I was on set.
Yes.
But it was like 4 years of learning this stuff, because no one teaches it. This is the thing, no one teaches. This is all this producing stuff. It's so hard to kind of, and it's changing so much. Like even right now in COVID, post-COVID, the distribution landscape is changing all over again. And now theatrical, who knows where that's at. So
now
it's the streamers
back on the table.
Yeah, no, I have a Cage Fighter DVD. We released as well on DVD. I mean, I just try to follow all the trades and see all the trends that are happening, and it's constantly changing.
Yes. Well, I definitely teach this stuff.
Oh, good. I wish you were around when I was trying to learn it.
Yeah, my goal is to save people, 4 years of
absolutely
trying to figure it out, because and I just wondered, is the family here called John, are those your family members?
Who's that?
No, John.
Yeah.
Oh, hey.
Hello, Jesse.
Hey.
We're Jesse's partner's parents, and we're just interested to hear what Jesse's got to say about how he got into.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. We know all about you now, Jesse.
Hi, guys.
You know all the secrets now.
Yeah, that's what we're here for, anyway.
Cool.
I enjoyed films very much.
Yes, I thought you must be
impressed with Callous Hands. I thought that was a really, really powerful film.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And where are you located?
We're located in the sort of middle of England, in well, if you know England at all, near Sheffield.
Near Sheffield, yeah, because I'm
yeah,
hearing
Manchester, Sheffield, Manchester.
I'm hearing the Yorkshire or Lancashire
yes,
accent.
Yorkshire accents, yes.
Yeah, my mother was from Yorkshire. Yeah, my mother was
here somewhere.
Yeah, Joe's been listening to it too. She's just feeding the birds. We've got chicks in the bird box.
Right, so that's what we're doing, yeah.
Nice. Well, lovely to have you, and thanks everybody for coming. Thank you so much, Jesse, for
it's pleasure
sharing your hard-earned wisdom.
Yeah,
thank you for having me.
Congratulations.
All that is.
Yeah.
You know?
Thank you.
Hard-earned wisdom. Did you?
Yeah, hard-earned.
Hard-earned. Mark, did you have a question before Jesse goes?
Well, first, I just wanted to say, Jesse, you're phenomenally talented. The film looks incredible. The story-wise, the acting is fabulous. And I just want to share with you that my daughter was 12 when she decided she wanted to be bat mitzvahed. Her mom was Jewish, and they had her bat mitzvah when she was 14. But she speaks fluent Hebrew. She's married to someone from Jerusalem who's an Orthodox Jew, and my grandsons speak Hebrew and English.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I mean, I think it's such a beautiful ceremony. Like it's just it is that rites of passage, and it really does. There's so many things. Just the learning of the kind of the prayer. It's I really, that's why I'm having my son do it as well. So yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
So beautiful, beautiful ceremony. Keith, do you have your hand up again? No?
He's muted. He's muted.
You're muted. No?
Mute yourself.
Keith, you're muted.
Sorry. No, okay, yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I learned Hebrew, but I don't really speak it. I only know ktsat, a little bit, you know. So I can't really carry conversation, but my father actually speaks and reads and writes Yiddish. So he would write letters to family in Hebrew, and you know, and I'm like, okay, Yiddish. I only know a few words here and there, but I wish I did more.
I do as well. I wish, that I had a better grasp of it.
Well, now I have to jump on the wagon. So I studied Hebrew.
All right.
I was started down the road to conversion, although they told us that they don't call it that. But and I didn't complete it, but I still wish I had learned more. But I just love all the letters and the little bit that I did learn. And if anybody's in the Bay Area and could go to the Contemporary Jewish Museum in San Francisco, it's became my absolute #1 favorite museum anywhere. And they have one wing which is only for sound art, and that's my thing, the sound artists. And the building was designed so that the new wing, which that sound piece is in, sticks out from the top. And it's supposed to be from you'll know this, the letter in the Hebrew alphabet which goes above the line. Do you know what I'm talking about? There's one letter in the alphabet that goes above the line, and it's like aspirational to God kind of thing. And that's the concept behind the design of the Contemporary Jewish Museum in San Francisco. If ever you get a chance to go, can't miss it. It's fantastic.
Very cool.
But thank you so much again, Jesse. It's
Pleasure.
so
Yeah,
good
this is
we
really,
can
it's really nice. Yeah, it's really nice.
connect after all these years. And,
Yeah.
And talk film, which is my favorite thing. And
Same.
enjoy your meeting with your agent. And
it's prepping for a big, scary pitch, but yeah.
yeah. Good luck with it.
Thank you.
Great story.
Thank you, Jesse.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Everyone.
Bye.
Joanne,
Nice to
thank
meet
you.
Elizabeth.
Thanks, Joanne.
Lamar and Latage. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.